This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and I'm joined today by Shannon Morse. Shannon, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
So in case you guys don't know who Shannon is, she does two really cool shows, TekThing and Hak5, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about what they are.
So both of those shows are video podcasts, and there's a series of different shows that I do on the channels for TekThing and Hak5, but those are the main shows that I do. TekThing is all about consumer devices, technology, and gadgets. So we do reviews, we do how-tos, sometimes interviews with experts. My favorite part personally is the reviews because I get to play with all the cool new gadgets.
Hey.
And then Hak5 is all about internet security, privacy, and internet freedom. We do a lot of hacking type of tutorials for white hats, of course. We don't teach anything that you shouldn't do. And we also do a lot of making and DIY projects on that show. So both of them are a lot of fun.
Sweet stuff. So obviously net neutrality is a big deal right now, right? So I'm sure you had lots of shows talking about that. We can touch on that if you want, because I'm a huge proponent. I don't think there's anybody listening to this that's anti-net neutrality. And it's kind of a disaster what's going on right now. So
oh my gosh. Yeah, don't tell me about it.
Right? I mean, what do we do to stop it or to prevent it from getting reversed? There's really very little we can do. I feel so powerless right now.
I feel the same way. Unfortunately, there's nothing that we really can do except for, keep on calling our congressmen and calling our senators and everybody and letting them know how we feel about it. I mean, we've already been told by Ajit Pai himself that our opinions don't matter, but they do matter to the people that we vote for. Exactly. So those are the ones that I've really, really been, informing of my opinion. And even just simply sending them a tweet and stuff like that can really, really offset, who's going to cancel out net neutrality as opposed to who is really for it. So I highly, highly suggest that people try to contact whoever they can.
And that is super good advice. Thanks for bringing that up. Call everyone. There is, I think, a website the EFF is hosting that lets you do it in one click.
Yes, there is.
So do it. Like, you have no reason not to do it. I know it sounds scary to have to call Congress people and other, elected officials because you don't know where to start, but they make it easy for you. I will put a link in the show notes to this thing. The decision is on the 14th of December. We pretty much know what the outcome is going to be. We're just starting this fight, right, Shannon?
Yeah, exactly. It comes back here and then ever since the early 2010s, and we can't really stop talking about it. So we need to keep on bringing it up every single time they bring in a new title or new regulation. It's a big deal. And I've been following it throughout the years on my show Threatwire, which is run on that Hak5 channel. And while different regulation has come up, net neutrality has always been around. So the fact that they are really wanting to just cancel it all out in December is very scary, and it's a really big deal. I just hope that people realize it, and I hope that folks go in and read the regulations that they're trying to introduce and that they're trying to get rid of, because a lot of the things that we hear online may not be factual. So it's always a good idea to read those documents.
Yeah. So, what you can do, obviously, other than going to this one-click EFF thing I'm going to link in the notes, and if you have, you can do more research and get a little bit more in depth if you like, but tell your friends too. Tell your friends, tell your family, explain to them why this matters, right? And if you don't understand, maybe, Shannon, do you want to give you like the 10-second spiel as to why net neutrality matters and what they're about to do and how it could change things?
Yeah, sure. You'll probably want to help me on it since I have like 36 hours of jet lag on me.
Oh, boy.
I know, right? It's pretty bad. I just got back from Japan.
That's right.
So net neutrality is basically where the government, the FCC in particular, is making sure that ISPs cannot charge extra money to different companies online or block certain sites that they don't agree with that you currently have access to. So while we have everything in place as we do now, you are able to access whatever you want for the same price for your ISP. So I pay Comcast $50 a month, or actually it's more than $50 a month now because my price went up, but I pay them a little over $50 a month for access to whatever websites I want to go to.
Right.
And it's the same across the board. If net neutrality was taken away, they would not be regulated. So that wouldn't be in place anymore. And they would have full ability to either charge you extra if you wanted to watch Netflix, for example, which is a competitor to Comcast, or they could charge Netflix more money to, to allow them to have faster connections to your home. So if you suddenly notice that Netflix is being slowed down on your ISP's connection, it could be because net neutrality was no longer in place and they decided to regulate them. So it is very important that we keep those regulations in place to make sure that ISPs know their place. They've had a lot of freedom in the past to collect data on users, and they've done these kind of things in the past too. And there have been court cases about these things. So it's really important that we keep on top of it and we make sure that the ISPs don't get those kind of freedoms.
Totally. And, it's another example would be if you're a developer and you create the next version of Netflix, like the next big thing, you won't have an opportunity for it to become the next big thing if, Comcast or Verizon or Time Warner or whoever it is decides to block you because you're not a big player yet. You'll never get a chance to be a big player. And so it destroys all of what the internet is about, which is equal access to everyone. This is not just about the ISPs, it's also about mobile carriers. Right. They're all in bed with each other right now. The mobile carriers are behaving pretty well and they're not directly affected by this stuff, but they could, this could be like the waterfall effect where they start doing stupid things because they can get away with it at the ISP level. So just be aware of that. And I think that's kind of the summary of it. Sorry to put you on the spot, but I figure, it's a topic
it's a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a topic you probably have to deal with often.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Cool. So that's what I told you. I told you this show is full of tangents and segues. We started with one because just before we started the recording, we were going to talk about phones. And we were still going to talk about phones, but we're also going to talk about laptops because you, like me, I don't do it as much as you, but you review laptops.
I do review laptops.
And it's kind of cool because you play with laptops that I never get my hands on. So before we get to the laptops, let's quickly talk about a phone that you just got and I had just gotten on the last podcast, and that's the OnePlus 5T. So 30 minutes into it, what do you think?
I know. I'm so soon off of the plane that I opened up my packages at work today and I was like, oh, I got the new 5T to review. Cool. Yeah, so this is the OnePlus 5T. It's I guess you would say it's the upgrade from the OnePlus 5 that came out just a couple of months ago. And this one is $500. And out of the box, it's smaller than the Google Pixel 2 XL, which I currently own. And I've noticed that it's very lightweight and the screen looks gorgeous.
It's
I really
good,
like what. Yeah, I'm surprised at it. I really like what they've done with the bezels. There's not a lot of space on the sides of it. And apparently the camera on this is really, really good. So I can't wait to start messing with that. I also noticed on the back of it, the fingerprint sensor. And this was something that I immediately noticed after I pulled it out of the box. It's very flush with the back, which may be an issue when you're trying to find it. So I'll have to see how that goes. But in comparison to the Pixel 2 XL, it's very easy to find your fingerprint sensor. So that might be a problem. We'll see how that goes. But I like the screen. It's very, very pretty.
Yeah, I think for the money it's great. I think the camera doesn't nearly live up to the flagships, but I mean, it is half the price almost as some flagships, and certainly 2/3 of the price of the others. So that's, another thing I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned it on the previous podcast regarding some other phones like the Essential phone, that are flagship devices that are more affordable, but have generally a bit of a flaw, not a flaw. That's not the right word. I'm thinking more like are a little challenge in the imaging side of things compared to the big players. One way to fix that is to install the Google Pixel camera. It's not an official install from the Google Play Store. And this is not the Pixel 2 XL's camera or 2 camera. It's the Pixel XL camera from last year. Some white hat hackers have made an APK available. I think it's on XDA forums or on APK Mirror. Maybe I'll link this to the show notes when I find the right one. To basically just download the APK and install it. And it's designed to work on Snapdragon 821 and 835 devices. So that includes phones like last year's Pixel, the G6, which is 821, and the LG G6, and then some of all the new 835 phones. Now, Cool. It won't work on all of them because they need to have a lot of the Google frameworks in place. So like my Xiaomi Mi Mix 2, it doesn't work on that, even though it's Snapdragon 835 and has Google Play services and everything. But on my Essential phone, it works. On my Moto Z2 Force, which has a kind of challenge camera, it works. It works on the OnePlus 5, the 5T. Awesome. And it improves the camera performance significantly because you get all the cool, the kind of budding AI bits and pieces that we saw mature on the Pixel 2 existed in the Pixel original, like HDR Plus and some other trickery. So basically, all the challenges that the hardware on these phones have is kind of somewhat mitigated by some of the software chops that Google has. Woohoo!
That's good to hear too, because you find with a lot of these phones, people will just strictly look at the specs, and with cameras especially right now, you're able to do so much more with the software than you could a few years ago. So it's amazing. Like portrait mode is one of my favorite things ever. I realize that you need like 2 lenses to make that really happen, but you can do really good portrait mode with software, which it's incredible. I carry around a giant DSLR camera, a mirrorless camera, and it's huge. The thing is huge with the lenses that I put on it.
I've seen you on your camera.
Yeah, you have at the conventions. So being able to take really good pictures with a smartphone is important to me. And that's something that of course, it's somewhat biased, but it is something that is really important to me whenever I'm reviewing a phone. So it's something that I pay a lot of attention to. So I'm definitely going to be comparing the OnePlus 5T to the previous OnePlus 5 version from OnePlus, but I'm also going to be messing with it compared to the Pixel XL 2 phone as well, just to see if there's a change in the camera or if you can do almost the same things with something that's like half the cost.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's perfectly serviceable even without the installing the special Pixel camera APK. But it's not in the same league. It's more like, a flagship was a year ago, non-Pixel a year ago. So it's good. It's an improvement of the 5. In some ways, portrait mode is still there. The nice thing about installing the Pixel camera app is that you have 2 cameras to choose from, right? So if you want to do all the trickery that the camera comes with, like the portrait mode, and if you have a monochrome mode, like you're on the Moto Z2 Force, you can still use that. And then if you want to, take photos that are just using the main camera and maximize what the main camera can do, then you run the Pixel camera app and boom, you get all the benefits from Google stuff. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about the Google camera, the original Pixel camera, is that there is a portrait mode in there.
Yes, I always forget about that portrait mode. There is one.
Yeah, it's kind of wonky because you have to kind of like rotate the phone upward a little bit. Like, it's weird, but it's not. It's basically by taking 2 photos with a little bit of parallax, it does pretty decent. And then it uses a lot of the AI chops that Google has to create portrait. No, it's not as good as the 2XL and the Pixel 2, which, have a dedicated portrait mode because they use the dual pixel autofocus system to get, an actual depth perception. I actually do depth perception with a single camera, which is the first phone in the world to do that.
Yes, exactly.
That's how the portrait works so well in the and then AI. They had a bunch of AI machine learning algorithms to it to make it even more bonkers. So yeah, but I mean, I think you'll love the phone. I was in the same boat as you last Friday when I unboxed it an hour or half an hour before the show. Yeah. And now that I've played with it for the whole weekend and a day, wow, it's a fantastic phone. I mean, I believe I tweeted saying something like, this is a glorious phone. I think it's amazing for the money. It's I think this ultra wide 18:9 screen thing, once you've experienced it, you don't want to go back. You get so much more screen real estate in the same chassis size. That is just amazing.
Oh, and one thing I love about this, there's a headphone jack.
Yeah, there's a headphone
Yeah.
jack. So I think, phones that are not ultra widescreen are going to start looking so dated in about a year, So the OnePlus 5T is an example, and the HTC U11 Plus, which, remedies the issues that the U11 had. And not that it had many issues, but it certainly didn't have a flagship grade screen. So,
Right.
this ultra wide stuff, bezel-less, whatever you want to call it. And personally, I prefer fingerprint readers on the back. So I'm really happy the OnePlus 5T has a fingerprint reader on the back.
Yeah, I used to really like them on the front, but since I'm really enjoying the wider screens, it's something that I'm willing to forfeit for them to put it on the back instead. I oftentimes find in just personal use that I will leave a phone on the counter and then I'll watch a YouTube video or I'll leave audio running or something like that in the background. And at those times, I don't really need the fingerprint sensor. And that was the reason why I was using it on the front. But since I'm generally just using it in the background whenever it's on a counter, now it doesn't bother me as much that it's on the back. So it's something that I've gotten used to.
I like it because when the phone is in my pocket and I want to pull it out, I can put my finger easily on my index finger on the back of the phone and unlock it while I pull it out of my pocket.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and by the way, you said you found that the fingerprint reader is really flush on the back of the 5T. A solution to that is your press kit should have come with a whole bunch of cases.
It did,
including the translucent case that's provided in the box, in the main box.
Yes,
and
it came with a slew of cases.
Those will solve that problem of you locating the fingerprint reader.
Good. Okay,
Yep.
That's good to hear.
Try that. Yeah.
I like OnePlus. Overall, I found that as a
too.
company, they've really listened to their fan base. So anytime there's an issue that I've had with an older model of the phone, they've tend to integrate that into their newer models. So, and you can't say that for every single company out there that makes smartphones, but OnePlus really seems to listen. And I'm really glad that they do that. I give them major props for doing that with their fan base.
I agree. And they've had some issues with some privacy stuff recently, and I think at least they've addressed them, I think, relatively well and quickly, and they haven't been all trying to dismissive about it, which
Right.
I think a lot of companies tend to kind of immediately fall into, which is sad.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So
glad
which
they
other
do that as well.
OnePluses have you played with?
I've played with all of them so far.
All of them. 1, 2, me too. 1, 2, 3, 3T, 5T. And then did you ever play with the OnePlus X?
Actually,
They're kind of
no.
mid-tier phone.
No, I did not.
That was a sexy thing at the time. Yeah. It was a glass and aluminum sandwich. So it had glass front and back. And it had a really beautifully machined kind of edge to it that was very unique. For the time, the specs were really quite decent for a mid-ranger. It didn't have a fingerprint reader at all, so that was a bit of a bummer. But
Right.
Can't have it all. So speaking of phones that kind of look and feel like the OnePlus 5T, I was at a briefing today for the Honor 7X from Huawei
really?
Honor.
Ooh.
Yeah. And what's cool is that phone's been announced. Like, it's not completely new. I think it was around November 10th that it was kind of made public.
Yeah.
But I think, and some people got hands-on time, but I think that they actually gave us review units, and I can't review the phone for you guys now. First of all, because I've only had it for a few hours, but also because, there's an embargo. But I can tell you that I'm very impressed, and they didn't give us the price. But I have a feeling it's going to be super competitive. We're talking less than 250, maybe even as low as 200. Insane.
Wow.
So the reason I'm bringing it up is because if you looked at it side by side with a 5T, which I actually did since I brought my 5T with me to the briefing, they're almost identical aesthetically. So glass and aluminum unibody, dual camera on the back, full on 18:9, 6-inch, 1080p screen in the front with few bezels, fingerprint reader in the back. I mean, they almost look like dead ringers of each other, yet they are completely different companies and completely different price point. In the same way as the OnePlus 5T is like a super affordable flagship spec. This obviously doesn't have flagship specs, but it's,
Yeah.
you know, we're going to look at something that's half the price of a OnePlus 5T, but looks and feels like one. Wow, right? We live in an
That's
amazing
impressive.
time.
I remember when the cheaper, inexpensive models of phones were terrible and you did not want to buy one of them. You just wanted to opt for the more expensive models because there was no way you could even deal with the slowness of them or the terrible cameras. But nowadays, I can compare a OnePlus 5T to something that costs twice as much, and their software, their cameras, their specs are just so close in comparison that why would you spend $1,000 unless there's something very specific that you want from one of the premium phones? You can totally get away with getting one of the mid-tier or lower tier ones and have no issues with it. So we have so much competition in this market that I feel like it's really, really decreased the prices that we used to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. We live in an amazing time. I finally feel for the last year that even if you buy like a really affordable phone, like the Moto E4, which costs $80 on Verizon as a prepaid phone, you are not getting a crappy experience. And that is incredible to me.
And, you know, I will say that it's not the experience for me. And I know that overall, technology has increased in price. So, you know, while we didn't see phones for $1,000 last year, we are seeing those premium phones for $1,000 this year. Those inexpensive models, you're right, they're getting much better, and I'm really happy to see that.
I mean, it's nice for people to have choices, and you know, I'm all for, like we talked about net neutrality before. To me, the internet is a utility, and it is something everybody should have access to, like healthcare, mind you, which we don't have in this country, universal healthcare. But at the same time, you know, I think internet access should be universal, and because that should be really affordable, because it you know, opens doors for education, opens doors to employment, to housing, to all kinds of things. It's become critical, and that's why, to me, you know, seeing phones like the Moto E4 that are not crap and cost $80. It's like still $80, but it's accessible. It means people are not SOL, regardless of their, you know, their income and their budget. And then, you know, there are phones. LG made a smartphone for $10 at Walmart 2 years ago. Yeah, and it wasn't. I mean, it was, you know, pretty low end. But if you know, needed an internet terminal, you had it. Like, you could browse the web, install Android apps at the time. And it all worked, and it had Wi-Fi. So even if you didn't buy cell phone service, you could go to a library and connect to the internet.
Oh, that is awesome.
Like, that is incredible to me, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think somebody, I can't remember who it was, one of the big tech reviewers bought one and just reviewed it just to kind of, you know, get a sense for, like, is it complete crap, like unusable, or is it worth, you know, at least potentially using? And the end result was, yeah, it's not great, but it'll do the job if you really need something. And it was made by LG, so it wasn't like, you know, some kind of like really terrible like eBay special that you have no idea where it came from thing.
That sounds like something that I would get for like some of the older generations in my family who still don't have cell phones to this day. They completely skipped it, but they could use one. Just, yeah. I still have family members that do not have smartphones. Yes, I have those family members.
But you said cell phones. You mean smartphones? Smartphone.
Yeah. Smartphone. They
right.
don't have a cell phone either. They carry zero mobile phones with them. Nothing. Yeah, I know. It's really weird. But this sounds like something that I could gift them and they would actually use it because they wouldn't have to deal with the cost. And it would be something that they could take with them whenever, you know, there's an emergency or something, especially if they're an older generation. So I feel like that'd be very useful. Maybe I should do that for Christmas. What do you think?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good idea. So how do you get in touch with them now? Do you just get like their voicemail all the time on their home line when they're not home?
I call their home, or I text their wife, who does have a smartphone. She has an iPhone, so she's fine.
So wait, do they have like voicemail as part of their landline service, or do they still have like an answering machine, like with a cassette tape in it?
They have it's a voicemail service with their home. They have, I believe it's Verizon or somebody, but it's their home phone that they have a messaging service with. I don't believe they have like an answering machine at home, but I'm pretty sure it's through the phone that they do.
I was gonna say if they have like a cassette tape answering. Do you remember those things?
Yes, I remember one.
Yeah, we're old enough. Okay. Because, kids these days, they don't know. They don't know the struggles we went through.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I feel old.
So let's talk about laptops. I currently am using a Pixelbook, which I got just before my trip to Portugal and Morocco, which was 3 weeks ago. I didn't take it with me on the trip because I was like, I need one laptop, not two, on a trip especially a trip to a place like Morocco, where I'm going to be in the desert and stuff, right? So I want to travel light. So I took my MacBook 12-inch, which is super light, right? Obviously. And it does everything. It's not just a Chromebook. So if I really have to like be offline, I can do something. But that Chromebook is super sexy. It's one of the thinnest laptops I've ever seen. Certainly the thinnest 2-in-1 convertible. And, I'm a big fan of Chromebooks because I think Chrome OS, you can do 99, well, not 99, but 90% of what you need to do on a Chromebook usually, especially in our world where we have ubiquitous internet and we can tether our phones, or tether our laptops to our phones. And so this thing is super sexy. It's expensive. It's insane. I don't know if I'd want to spend $1,000 of my money on one of those, but damn, you see that thing, Shannon? And it's drool envy moment.
So I've only seen pictures of it online. Maybe I should go visit you over in San Francisco because I would love
come
to
on
see
over
this thing.
and we'll do coffee and then you can play. It's super sexy. I mean,
okay, it's
honestly, I'm not super excited about the design of the Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL phones. I actually feel last year's Pixel and Pixel XL were a tighter industrial design.
Yeah.
Because there's too much of a variation between the 2 and the 2 XL, since the one was made by HTC and the other one was made by LG. Whereas last year, both were made by HTC, and there was this consistency in design. And it's interesting because you can tell the Pixelbook was designed with the aesthetic in mind of the old Pixels phones. Like it clearly was designed halfway through the design phase of the Pixel phones and the Pixel 2 phones.
It does kind of look like that, like especially with the hard lines on the edges. It doesn't have like the curves except for the corners of it. And I also noticed that it doesn't have a edge-to-edge bezel on the front screen of the Pixelbook.
That's one thing that I don't like about it. It has enormous bezels. Then again, if you turn it over as a tablet, it is a little easier to not cover the screen with your fingers that way. But I think that's the part they could have done a better job. But it's a super high-res display, and it's a touchscreen, and it's super thin for a touchscreen. And, battery life is great. It's completely fanless, has a massive SSD in it, like something like 64 or 128 gig, massive for a Chromebook.
How about ports? How are the ports on it?
There's 2 USB-C and 1 headphone jack.
Okay.
So one on each side, and the USB-Cs are charge on each side. So you can pick whichever side you want to charge with.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So,
sometimes that would be something that somebody would think of.
Sometimes you're at a conference and you have like this outlet that you can't quite reach, and it's on the wrong side of you, and the cord has to go around your laptop to the right side or the left side.
Oh yeah, happens all the time.
You don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's cool. Yeah, I would really like to mess with the Pixelbook. Personally, I usually use more higher end laptops just because I like to edit on the go. I do a lot of Adobe Premiere Pro editing, so having all those applications and a lot of interior specs like hardcore GPU and RAM and everything is very, very important to me. But for something that's mid-range, not mid-price, but mid-range as far as being able to do day-to-day tasks, being able to do some gaming online, not, downloadable Steam games, but doing, Chrome games and stuff like that, then this would be very favorable, especially with the aesthetics. The design is beautiful on it. How's the keyboard? I am curious about that as well.
It's great. That's the one thing that I love about it. The keyboard is fantastic. It's one of the best keyboards. It's kind of shallower, not as shallow as the MacBooks, the new MacBooks, but definitely shallower than the old MacBooks and most PC laptops. But it's still using scissor switches, so it does. The problem with Apple's super shallow design, the butterfly design, is that these switches, when they go bad, they're impossible to repair.
Oh.
And they don't go bad often. I've had my MacBook 12-inch for over 2 years now, and I've had zero issues with it. And I have crumbs that go in there and stuff. So, take this with a grain of salt. But a few people I've heard have had things get stuck under the keys where the key doesn't work anymore and they can't get it out because you can't take the key off without breaking the mechanism. Yeah. Whereas traditional scissor keyboards, you can actually pop the key off, right? And get in there and vacuum the thing out, put the key back on, and everything is back in business. So I like that it's shallow because I like shallow keyboards, and I like that, but I still like that it's scissor keys, and there's really no flex on that keyboard. It's
that's
it's
good.
Basically part of the unibody. It's super tight, and then there's a glass trackpad which is really responsive and beautiful, like all Chromebooks. And the palm rests are silicone, so they're like very, very comfortable. They feel really nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
they don't pick up dirt or anything like that.
No, surprisingly good so far. And if it's a silicone, so it's super easy to clean. You just use water and it just comes right off. Everything.
Oh, that's nice.
Doesn't stain, because it's silicone, and hot water particularly works really well. And I think it might stain with some things like dye. So you'd have to be really careful if you're using, if you're a maker and you're using leather dye or clothing dye while you're working on the laptop, because I think that would probably stain it permanently.
Unless that's what you're going for.
If it's just smudge and dirt, yeah, maybe you want that design. You want something funky, yeah. Some
tie-dye.
Yeah, let's take $1,000, not quite laptop, and put some funky designs on it. So we were talking about laptops, and you were telling me about you have a Razer laptop right now, and you also have an Alienware. Since we're talking about heavy lifting, hardcore hardware here. Tell us about these two devices.
Yeah, I sometimes end up with quite a few laptops just because it's one of the main things that I review. So I've been using a Dell XPS 13 Developer Edition for Linux, and I've been featuring that one on my Hak5 episodes about Linux tutorials, which is really fun, and it's a great machine. But the ones that I've really been messing with are the Alienware 13-inch and the Razer Blade. Not the Razer Blade Pro, not the Razer Blade Stealth, but the mid-tier one that's called the Razer Blade, which is the one that comes with a full-on GPU, and it also comes with, I believe mine has 16 gigs of RAM and a 500 terabyte hard disk drive in it. So it has everything you would need if you need to edit video, which is wonderful. Now, I will say with the Razer Blade, I previously had the 2016 version, and that one, the mouse pad gave out on me, the trackpad.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, it was weird. The left click stopped working.
But they fixed it for you?
Well, I was going to say, I could... I could open up the backplate of it myself and try to fix it because I know how to take out the keyboard and everything, but that would have voided the warranty. So since it was still under a year, I just got in touch with them. The customer service was great and they responded really quickly. But when I got it back, one of the fans was screwed up. So I tweeted them. Jeez. I was so mad. And I was just like, hey guys, what's up? I get it back and now the keyboard's not working and one of the fans is broken, and I made a video of it. And so I ended up sending it back in and they upgraded it to a 2017 model instead. And that's what I have now. So that happened about 2 months ago. And luckily, the customer service was very good. I'll give them that. But unfortunately, you shouldn't receive your laptop back and have something else wrong with it. So that was an issue.
So you bought this one. This is yours. I did. This is your machine.
I bought it for CES 2016. Or no, it was CES 2017. And I bought it in December of 2016 when I needed
a year ago.
Yeah, when I needed to get some editing done for the show floor. And it was very, very important that I had this editing rig on the go for work. And luckily, they replaced it with the 2017 model. So that's the one I'm using now. And I'll be taking this one with me to CES 2018. And hopefully I won't run into any issues over this next year with this one since I have a new warranty with it.
Sweet. So is that the 13-inch or 15-inch laptop?
This one is, I'm looking at it now. I think it's 15 inches. Yeah, it looks like it. It's like 14.6 inches. So it's a little bit under 15 inches, which makes it like kind of move around a lot if you get like a 15-inch case for it, unless you buy the razor blade one. But luckily I was able to find a really good case for it on Amazon that was just under 15 inches. So it fits really snugly. But yeah, it's right underneath 15 inches. The battery on it lasts a long time, like 7 or 8 hours, which is really, really good. If I am editing full day, it will drop down quite a bit. To, I would say like 5 or 6 hours of usage that I can get out of it, but still really, really good. And it also has plenty of hard drive space and everything on the inside, and you can play games on it, which is great. So if you're a gamer on the go, it's a really good model. Unfortunately, the thing is though, with the Razer Blade, it is $2,000. So whoa, yeah, it's it went on my credit card. I'll give it that.
I mean, look, it's not a ridiculous amount of money if you think that, you know, like a lot of people are MacBook Pro people, right? And they spend easily that kind of money, right? So
that is true.
So I don't know. I think it's reasonable. I mean, my MacBook 12-inch, when I bought it, I maxed it out spec-wise. It was a built to order, and it's $17.99. So
wow.
Yeah, and it's not even in the same league in terms of performance. Like, not remotely, but it's super tiny and the battery life is pretty damn awesome. And yeah, no, it's been good. I mean, I wouldn't use it as my main device at all. Like there's just not enough horsepower there. If you open more than like 10 tabs, you're SOL. It's not a RAM issue.
I could definitely use the Blade or the Alienware as my on the go laptop as well as my day-to-day work.
Yeah, no, I bet. For sure. Really good. No, for me, it's not a RAM issue. I've got 8 gigs on there, which I think is generally plenty enough for the web. But it's just the CPU can't keep up. It's a Pentium, whatever, M, like the mobile ultra efficient thing, and it just falls flat. I really hope that the next generation of the MacBook 12-inch, I hope they don't get rid of the form factor, because I love how tiny it is, and the screen on it is gorgeous. It's Retina and everything, but it's like I want to see a processor that can keep up. And this is the thing about the Chrome, the Pixelbook, the Chromebook, is that it has no fan and it has real Intel i5 and i7s in there.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's the last generation.
So you don't get any noise.
With no fans. Yeah. And so I like the fanless thing on the MacBook, but I need to see a bump up to an i5 or i7, because that's just ridiculous. I mean, in fact, I think I felt like it was a downgrade, because I came from a MacBook Air 11-inch, which at the time was like a Haswell, I think. And, I was Core i7 Haswell. And I went to a MacBook 12-inch with this, dinky Pentium mobile thing. And it was just like, ugh. Immediately I noticed it.
Not ready for that.
And I mean, and I do edit, and you're gonna like cringe, but I do edit video on it sometimes when I'm at trade shows and stuff. Like basic stuff,
really?
Just... Yeah, it works because Apple has super optimized rendering, right? So as long as I tell it to show me everything in like SD or at 720p, and then I remember I only do 1080p max. I never do 4K. So I mean, ultimately, but when I render, it has all these optimized co-processing chips built in there that do a really good job at. And it's tightly coupled with the OS, so it does a really, really good job at rendering, no matter what software you use, really. So, I mean, it's still not as fast as rendering on a MacBook Pro or even on your Razer or whatever, but it's manageable. Like it's not. That's one thing that was to me was a critical test to pass for me to switch over to the MacBook 12-inch was I can kind of live with a little bit less CPU power for a trade show for a few days. But if it didn't render video at least as fast as my previous machine, then I was SOL, and that's not been an issue. So
yeah, that's a big thing for me was rendering times. And I will say both the Alienware 13 and the Razer Blade do about a 1-to-1 ratio with rendering times compared to the file size. So if the file is like 15 minutes long, the render for a 1080p file will be, it'll take 15 minutes or less in some occasions.
So you'll be impressed that I can do sub 1-to-1 on my 12-inch MacBook.
Yeah, I can definitely do sub 1-to-1 most of the time, but if it requires like if there's a load of B-roll and there's tons and tons of different layers on the timeline, then it's going to take a lot longer. But for my normal day usage, it'll do less than, or it'll do better than 1-to-1.
So Alienware 13 versus Razer. Well, I mean the 13 versus 14 point something inch different form factor, right? But like, tell us a little bit what your thoughts are on that.
So the 13 obviously should be smaller, but because it has the Alienware that is, but because it has a big battery on the back of it, a lot of the times the Razer Blade will fit better into my laptop bags because the Alienware 13, while it has a 13-inch screen, the battery on it just pops out like nothing I've seen before, and it ends up being very heavy. So for travel and on the go, I prefer the Razer Blade because it fits so much better into bags, and it's a little bit thinner than the Alienware 13. But the Alienware 13, on the other hand, has every single port I could ever want. So it's kind of a trade-off. Either you get all the ports and it's a little bit heavier and, you have a giant battery on the back, or you take the Razer Blade and you lose a few ports, but you also get a better fit. So, yeah, but both of them cost about the same if you want the same specs. So it really depends like which company I guess you prefer, because they're both gaming companies. They're competitors to each other. So it's like, which one do you want?
And do they both have USB-C and Thunderbolt 3 over USB-C?
They both have USB-C. I believe they are both Thunderbolt as well. Cool. Yes, they are.
And are they like some of the earlier Razer laptops had the trackpad on the side? This one is in the middle, right?
Yeah, I remember that when the trackpad was on the side. That was weird and janky, and I did not like it at all. Okay, no, they have it in the middle, which is good. Very good thing. Yeah, if it was still on the side, I would not buy that at all. But no, they have it in the middle. But they do have separate left and right clicks, which some people don't like. I prefer it. I really like it when they have a left and right click that is separate from the full trackpad, because then I can do, I don't know, I feel like I can be more precise with my mouse movements. So something to think about. Yeah, totally.
What was I going to ask you? So have you ever used any laptop? Like so in terms of reviewing, we spoke about Alienware, which is kind of Dell. I have an XPS 13 2-in-1, the little convertible tablet laptop, super light, thin, 13-inch thing.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it's one of my best Dell experiences to date. I don't have a lot of track record. Like I maybe review one Dell laptop every 2 years or so. So I've, the caveat is it's not like you who touches a lot of Dells.
Yeah.
But I have to say, like, this is the first Dell that I felt like, oh, I could buy this. This is solid. Like the trackpad, particularly. The big thing as a Mac and Chromebook user doing Windows from time to time is that I get really frustrated with the trackpad experience. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm used to super, super responsive, super smooth, super, sensitive in the right way. Trackpad, especially on these full on no clicky, like, the whole thing clicks trackpad. And for a long time, the PC world just couldn't deliver. And I just couldn't understand. I'm like, come on, like somebody's got to do it right. And boom, that XPS 13 2-in-1 is the first laptop that out of the box, I was like, this trackpad rocks. Woohoo!
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, I really like the trackpad as well. I got to review it whenever it came out. It was a couple of months ago, I want to say. And
it was like in the summer.
Yeah, I really liked the 2-in-1. I was impressed by it. I loved the fact that it was so responsive whenever you change it from keyboard, or when you change it from laptop to either tent mode or tablet mode. Like it like a split second, the thing would switch over. And I was very, very happy with that because I've reviewed some 2-in-1s in the past that would either freeze up on you on the screen and they'd just be like, oh, what are you doing? Oh, why are you switching me? Oh, I'm supposed to go into tablet mode. And then they would switch and I'd just be like, come on, I don't got time for this.
It's like,
so it was
sorry,
actually
I'm going
very
to take
responsive.
a break right now and I'll come back and maybe you'll have this sorted.
The CPU in it, I believe, was a little bit slower than the XPS 13 laptop, but not enough to really make a difference in day-to-day usage. So if you wanted to find a 2-in-1 that allows you to do everything that you could basically do in a workday, I really suggest the 2-in-1 because it works great.
Yeah, no, it's really a great laptop. I'm really happy with it. The only problem I had with it was within a month or so of using it, my headphone jack broke.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it stopped working on one channel. And I didn't put any stress on it, so I'm not quite sure what happened. I let them know, and they were like, oh, so sorry. And they didn't replace. I mean, this was a review unit. They didn't replace it. I said, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Like, I have... It's USB-C. It's got USB-C on two ports actually. So I think it's 2 ports. So I have I use these on my phones. I have like this external amp, DAC and amp from FiO that I use. That's really high quality.
Oh yeah, those are good.
It's got it's USB-C, and so I plug it into the laptop, and I instantly have basically super high quality audio and a headphone jack. So I was like, it's a pain. It's a dongle, but it's always in my bag anyway. So whatever, But that's the only problem I had with that XPS 13. I'm sure that's just an oddity. Like I don't think it's something I would knock it for because, sometimes this stuff happens, especially mechanical things. They're more fragile than all the electronics. So this is going to go bad. So
very true. Well, I know you know my co-host Patrick Norton-Miriam, and his biggest concern with every Dell laptop is the fact that they put the webcam at the very bottom of the screen, you get nose cam whenever you're like podcasting. Yeah. But the nice thing about the 2-in-1 is that when you flip it over into tent mode, it also flips over the camera, so the camera ends up being on the top side of the laptop, which is great because then you don't get that nose cam. So anytime,
and tent mode is kind of perfect for doing like Skyping, right?
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
be hands-free. Yeah.
Anytime you want to use it with that configuration, it's perfect in tent mode since it does flip over the camera as well. And I think that's worthy of a mention because we give Dell a lot of crap for putting their webcam at the bottom of the monitor. Even though, of course, I know it's because the bezels are so nice. But come on, like webcams belong on the top.
They do. I agree. I mean, we all look better with the cams on the top. What was I going to say related to that? I like the keyboard. I like the display. I don't know what version of the display I have. If it's like the super high res or the regular. I think it's just the regular because it's like a Core i5 model. So I don't think it's a super fancy one. USB-C on this is for charging as well. And this is one of the things I have to tell you, having a 12-inch MacBook and this USB-C based XPS 13 and the previous Pixel laptop from Google, the Chromebook, which had USB-C for charging, and now the Pixelbook that also has USB-C for charging, and all my phones are USB-C for charging. I live in a magical world where I can carry one charger that charges all my devices. Woohoo! Isn't it wonderful? So good. Yeah. I actually have this third-party 60-watt charger made by a company whose name completely escapes me, and I cannot reach right now to get but I'll link down in the notes. I think I mentioned in the podcast a few weeks back. They gave me a review in it. It's twice the size of the Apple iPhone charger.
Whoa.
So if you stack 2 iPhone chargers end to end into like a longer vertical double cube.
Yeah.
Imagine that with in the end, instead of a USB type A, it has a USB-C plug. And then it comes with a C to C cable. And it's up to 60 watt. So it'll charge almost any USB-C laptop, any USB-C phone. And it's much more compact than even Apple's USB-C charger.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. I carry that one around everywhere I go, and it's basically one adapter that does it all.
You gotta hook me up with their name so I can buy one. That sounds cool.
I will. Once we end the recording, I'll give you the deets. But I'll put it in the show notes as well. The cool thing too is that I have these adapters that I found like on eBay, or I think it was Amazon, where USB-C to micro USB-C. Micro USB, USB-C to Lightning. They're tiny, short little things. So I carry those in my bag too. So like if a friend needs a charger and they're in an iPhone, I pull in my Monster 60-watt beast that can charge anything, and I plug this tiny little adapter and I plug into their iPhone. And guess what? With the new iPhones, the 8 and the 8 Plus and the 10, they get fast charge.
Oh, cool.
And they're like, whoa, what is this weird magical USB-C world you live in? And I'm like, not a world you live in, clearly.
Obviously.
Those iPhone users.
Well, personally, I have not used one of the new iPhones myself since my coworker hasn't bought one. He's the only iPhone user that I work with. And I'm an Android girl, so I have yet to see the iPhone 10 in person from one of my friends. And I am too lazy to go to an Apple store myself.
It is a sexy thing.
Yeah.
But as you know, as Android girls ourselves, we look at this thing and go, wow, look, Apple made an Android phone. Right on.
That's true.
Like, no,
I noticed
look,
that a lot of the features and specs that they've included in them, we've already had in one phone or another with Android.
And the fact that it looks, it has a very distinctive look with the notch and stuff. But I mean, the point is, being a kind of almost full screen phone, it reminds us of a lot of the existing full screen Android phones in a way. So to me, that's kind of the joke. I know it's an iPhone, it is different, and it does some really great, crazily awesome things. I think Face ID is brilliant, and I think it's going to only get better. And I think it eventually we'll look back at this as like a turning point. Like, just like we look back at, hey, geez, fingerprint readers that work. Remember when they didn't work on phones?
Yeah.
Oh man, Apple made that possible, I think. But look, I love Apple because I'm a Mac user. I'm just not a big fan of iOS and iPhones. I will buy an iPhone 10. I just haven't gotten around to it. I didn't manage to get one on launch day because I want an unlock one, and that was really hard to get because they don't sell an unlocked one in the US yet. So I'm waiting to both be in Portland at my second residence where I pay no taxes if I buy some stuff, and have the unlocked version available. And I'm going to buy just the base storage one just because I need to experience it. I think it's a milestone in the mobile phone world. Whether I'm an Android person or not, I have to admit that this phone is super sexy, and
definitely.
It is historically significant. So I need to play with it. And
I've started with iPhone. I started with Palm Central back in the day, but and then I went to iPhone, and iPhone was my very first full on legitimate smartphone over 10 years ago. Gosh, it was a long time ago. And then I switched to Android, mostly because I'm a hacker. I like to have a lot of open concepts. I like to be able to do a lot of stuff outside of, an Apple store, and Google gives me those options. Now, of course, for a user who is not a information security professional or something like that, you probably want an iPhone because it is more secure. There are a lot of people that use in the InfoSec community that use iPhones because they are more secure and they need those for their government or contractual work. Yeah. So, and Face ID is one of the most secure implementations of security protocols that we've seen in smartphones, which is excellent. Absolutely excellent. And their encryption is amazing too.
Speaking of, sorry, go on. Sorry.
So I have a lot of pro things to say about iPhone. I am not an iPhone hater by any means. It's just not my thing. I just like Android.
Yeah, me too. I feel more comfortable there. My segue was going to be that the 5T, the OnePlus 5T has a Face ID feature. It's not Face ID. Like, it has a face unlock feature, which is not usable for banking apps and stuff, but it actually works quite well. And I've implemented it together with my fingerprint. Cool. And I find that I most of the time just push the power button, look at the phone, and I'm in.
Yeah.
And it's not like the photography Face ID feature that Android has had for many years now since Ice Cream Sandwich. It's not the Retina scan and the Face ID that Samsung offer on the S8 and the Note 8. This is kind of their own implementation, and it uses, it does face geometry analysis. It's very interesting. I mean, it's certainly not as secure, but I feel confident enough using it just because it's interesting, and
Cool.
it's kind of like kind of a halfway step to the real thing. And the first time I've used any kind of face authentication on an Android phone that I feel was secure enough for me to be comfortable and at the same time reliable, which is very rare on the other devices. So that you should try that out. I think it's cool. The only time it doesn't work is in low light. So because it doesn't project a grid like the Face ID stuff does. So you have to have some light. But then if it's too dark, just use your fingerprint, right? But
Yeah, of course.
in most situations in everyday world, it's very fast too. It's just great. So let's see. We segued back to phones because of USB Type-C. USB Type-C, there's a lot of people who, are cranky that, you need adapters for a lot of stuff, and the chargers are not always compatible between PD and quick charge and all that. You know what? The reality, though, is that it's a godsend for someone like me who has as many devices as I have to have a universal connector. Yes, there are flaws. Yes, there are problems, but it's still a much better world. And, a lot of people say, how can you say that? You have a MacBook 12-inch with a single USB port. Well, I do have dongles, and at dongle world, dongle life is my life, and it's not so bad. We're at the stage now, 2.5 years into it, where there are a lot of really nice, cheap, beautifully made, in fact, matching the Apple aesthetic dongles that are not made by Apple that are much more useful than the Apple dongles. I was in Hong Kong about a month ago, and I was at a Xiaomi store, and they sell a dongle there for $20. Let me just pull it out because it
Wow.
has. I'll tell you what it has. It has two USB-A, a USB Type-C for input for charging, and DisplayPort. And it costs $20. And it's in
Wow.
the Apple, white design aesthetic.
That's really cool.
So we're getting to a point where this doesn't really matter so much anymore, in my opinion. And it's super small and light as well. So
I'm definitely one of the people who's like, oh, I'm not sure about USB-C, but then I started working with it and I was like, oh, I am a USB-C convert now. The only
Yep.
thing I miss is that a lot of companies have taken away that headphone jack for USB-C.
Oh, yeah, that's not right.
The security of Bluetooth is nowhere near the security of an analog line. So
Correct.
for me,
Right.
using Bluetooth is completely unacceptable, especially if I'm at a convention or something like that. So I won't be able to use headphones at all whenever I
No.
go to conventions,
I
unless
agree.
I have a dongle. And then
the
I'm going to
dongles, you
lose my
them.
dongle.
Yeah. I know. It's sad. And for me, as somebody who really cares about audio quality, the dongles don't sound as good because the DACs and the amps they put in them don't sound as good.
Yeah.
And then you lose them, and then there's the issue of Bluetooth doesn't sound as good even with the best codecs, and as you said, it's not secure. I mean, the list goes on. It's just a nightmare. I kind of hate Apple for doing this. I blame Apple. And then thankfully
I do too.
Samsung and LG didn't follow suit, but Google did. And as much as I love my Pixel 2 XL, oh man, I'm really not happy with that lack of
Yeah.
headphone jack.
I'm not happy about it either.
It's wrong. Google, it's wrong. And here, do you want to hear the killer? Here's the kicker and killer, is that Apple still sells all their MacBooks with a headphone jack. And Google sells the Pixelbook with a headphone jack.
Yeah, so like what? So they know you need it whenever you're on like a laptop. Why not just keep it in the phones? I don't mind less of screen area if it means that I have a headphone jack. Ugh.
You do realize in about 6 months to a year, we're going to have the same conversation after Apple removes the headphone jack from the new MacBooks.
Yeah,
And we'll be,
that's true.
remember when we said, and wah, 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 sad trombone. What other laptops? Surface laptop. I did mention this in the podcast a while ago, about a month and a half ago or so. Microsoft finally gave me a Surface laptop about 3 or 4 months late. But you know what? That's cool. And I have to say, I've tell you, Shen, one of the things about Apple laptops, in my experience and my opinion, is that it's such a great, tight hardware software experience. Like they're so closely coupled. And for me, as also a hacker girl, I like having a command line that's Unix, right? Not Linux, but it's Unix on the Mac, which I love. And so that's part of the reason I'm a big macOS fan. But the Surface laptop is the first Windows 10 or Microsoft Windows laptop or device I have ever used in my life that I felt like, in terms of presentation, unboxing, first use experience, matched an Apple device.
Wow.
That's felt impressive. So tightly integrated to me. Like the trackpad is so smooth, even smoother than the XPS 13 2-in-1. Like just everything, there were no drivers to install. Everything just worked out of the box. There were a couple of updates, but they were just Windows updates and they went really fast. It just felt so refined and polished, the first use out of box experience, that I was like, finally, Microsoft has nailed it. And I think they've nailed it because they control the hardware and the software.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think you're right, because you haven't seen any competitors to the Apple laptops like you've seen with this Windows laptop. Now, I haven't gotten to play with one myself, any of the Surface laptops, but my coworker has one. He owns one, and he has been able to do editing on it, which is just amazes me that he can do that on it. Just because it doesn't have like an
the specs
NVIDIA,
aren't that great.
Doesn't have an NVIDIA in it. So I'm just like, what? How does this work? It's just like Intel integrated graphics, but it works, and it works so good. It's fluid. It's consistent, and you see this beauty with it that you really don't see with a lot of other Windows laptops. So I have to give Windows major props on what they've been doing with the Surface laptop.
Yeah, I think Microsoft is onto something. And honestly, I have to tell you, I think Windows 10 is a great OS. It's the first version of Windows where I really feel like, I could live with this. It's fine. I would have to install the Linux tools, the GNU tools and all that Linux tool chain stuff. But I'd be happy. It's good enough. It's fine. It's not driving me mad. The only time I kind of get a little cranky is when the updates take a bit too long.
Yes.
As a Mac user, like on a Mac, every now and then it'll pop a corner thing saying, hey, you have an update. We're installing it in the background, and then like a few minutes later it'll pop up another thing saying reboot at your convenience, and we'll reinstall, we'll do the magic, and then you reboot and it takes a minute and you're back in and you're done. And Chromebooks are even better. Chromebooks just like pop a little dialogue at the bottom saying restart to upgrade. And you can do it anytime, and you click the restart to upgrade button and the thing restarts, and you're literally instantly at the login screen. Like, there's so cool. There's zero time like it does everything in the background. But Windows still has a bit of a lag there, and I think they need to work on that. I think that's something that, I've had a few friends at trade shows that use my Windows machines kind of get SOL when they restarted their computer and some update had been applied while the computer was asleep and plugged into power, right? Where it was still essentially running in the background. Yeah. And the thing took 20 minutes to reboot because they had to install all this crap. And they're trying to get work done, right? They're freaking out.
Right, of course, like, yeah. It's terrible.
You can't do this. This is not right. Like, at least prompt people or something. I don't know. It's weird.
One of my biggest concerns with Windows 10, of course, was the security settings that they have whenever you boot it up. But if you go through them and you pay attention and you read everything, then you can turn pretty much everything off. Of course, they try to opt you in to like collecting keyboard data and stuff like that, which you want to turn off from a security set. Yeah, it is. So you should watch my 30-day security challenge that I recently did on TekThing. So I went through all of those different settings and told you how to turn them all off. It's very, very nice, and there's a lot to it.
Do you want to send me a link to that after the show we record? Because I want to put that in the show notes.
I totally can.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was basically like 30 days of security challenge videos that I did for 30 days straight. It was a lot of work, but my last few are coming up this week, actually at the end of November. So I did each day on a different topic, and one of them was all about Windows 10 security settings. So I talked through how to turn all that stuff off, even including the newest Fall Creators update and some of the new changes in there. So it's good information to know know if you're using Windows 10. But also, if you're using older Windows 10 versions as well, you should pay attention to the security settings in those too. But with the Surface laptop, nice thing is there's not going to be, additional bloatware from other companies.
Yeah, that's really good.
Which is really, really nice and will save you some trouble.
The XPS 1321 that I got was very clean. I was very impressed by the lack of crap on it.
Yeah, so, XPS or Dell has done a really good job with that.
Wow, I remember back in the day when a Dell computer was would take 30 minutes to boot the first time just because of all the stuff you have to uncrud or crud up rather. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I was for a long time a Windows user and, but also a Unix user and Linux user, both Unix on workstations in the 90s, like Suns and Silicon Graphics and stuff.
Oh, wow.
I was doing R&D jobs, so I was access to really cool computers. But also Linux, of course, because it was kind of a cheap alternative. Throw a Pentium in a box and boom, you get some cheap Unix there with Linux. We love Linux. Everybody loves Linux. Linux is the basis for Android. Woo!
Yeah, I love Linux. It's
I know everybody loves Linux. So anyway, I was on Windows and Linux and Unix, and in the early 2000s, I was really drooling about the Mac hardware. It's the hardware that was getting me. I was like, oh God, this hardware. And then they switched from OS 9 to Mac OS 10, OS 10, now known as Mac OS. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Unix. Want is even stronger. So I saved all my pennies and I bought a PowerBook 12-inch.
Oh, wow.
And that thing, I literally, I think after 2 hours of it, I was like, I'm never going back. Wow, this is amazing. Where have you been all my life, right?
Wow,
I've got
that's
Unix,
impressive.
I've got beautiful hardware. The software doesn't get in my way. It's simple. I can get productive. I don't have to worry about tweaking things. Because in Windows, I was always like, oh, okay, let's go in the registry and do this and that. And, and then I'd be like, oh, my computer's borked. Oh, well. But now, I don't even have the temptation. With Mac, it's just whatever, I just use it with all defaults almost. I think I only have a custom screen background. That's it.
Wow.
And I've got a few preferences that I set that, over the years I've kind of developed into. I've turned off a lot of the new stuff that Apple's added over the years. Because I'm an old curmudgeon. It's I don't need no stinking whatever it is that you added, control panel, whatever what is it called? The notification tray. I don't need this. Get off my lawn. But there's some things that I adopted over time that I felt really were major improvements, the ability to search system-wide, right? Spotlight, huge improvement. What else did I adopt? Time Machine for backups, phenomenal.
Time Machine is
it's
nice.
Just great. Stuff like that, right? But there's a lot of stuff in the new, dashboard. I was like, get off my lawn, you kids. I don't need no dashboard. Yeah. Funny.
Warning, my cat just decided to jump up on my computer desk, so you might hear her.
Well, it's good to have some purring on the show. But you know what? We need to wrap up anyway. So why don't you pimp yourself and tell people where they can find you and online on Twitter and all that good stuff?
Oh, yeah, sure. So my Twitter is Snubs, SNUBS. So it's really easy to find. I was lucky and got a 5-character Twitter character name. Woo-hoo. My password is much longer than that. Don't worry. And you can also, that's where I do a bunch of talking about information security, my own personal feelings on things. So if you want to get to know me as a person, that's the place to do it. And you can also find my shows. Again, those were Hak5 and TekThing. I already told you what they're about, but you can find those over on YouTube, youtube.com/HAK5 for Hak5 and youtube.com/TekThing. That's TekThing for TekThing. And both of those, we do weekly shows as well as a bunch of little projects that we post over and over again. Like my 30-day security challenge is up now on TekThing's YouTube channel. So definitely check them out. And of course, if you have any questions about anything technology or InfoSec related, hit me up on Twitter because that's the place I'm most active.
Yay, Twitter. I mean, I'm having a hard time saying that these days because I
know, right? Me
think
too.
Twitter's kind of broken, but at the same time, I love Twitter and I was there so early.
Me too.
You guys know where to find me at TNKGRL, like Tankerl without the vowels, on Twitter. And of course, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/Miriam Joire. It's my full name spelled out, Miriam with a Y. That's where you'll find videos to go along with this show. Basically, any new phone I get, any new laptop, whatever, I'll unbox and talk about, and you can like look at in high res at all the goodness so that you know what you're hearing, because, you know, audio doesn't bring you that stuff. So subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and all that good stuff. And thanks for being on, Shannon. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, it was so fun to do a show with you.
I know, we should do more. Let's do more.
I would love to.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.